Again, we've removed 2 virtual instruments. So now we've got our keys, our electronic synth is good. It's already audiophile. And now we have our piano. All right. And this one here, I think I'll glue that together. Chorus, verse. Everything else is pretty much the way I'd want it anyway. They will possibly be joined together again, but we will just go with it anyway. Current settings. All right, so we're going to create our piano track. Okay, let's have a listen. Sounds like our piano. Now, we could get rid of the V in that and just call it piano, but I'm just going to leave it there just so we know what it was originally. Again, I'm going to delete that track. So now our keys are done. Let's go to our bass. Let's have a look. We did do a bass. So we've got real bass, we've got electronic bass. They're all audio, but we have this virtual bass here, which is laid out fine. So we're just going to go straight for it. All right, we change the name. Okay, I think it's the same. I'll believe it is. All right, so we're going to remove the virtual instrument. And we are all done with the bass. Now, I don't think we have any virtual guitars. No, we don't. So guitars are fine. Now we have drums. Okay, so we have, let's expand this a bit. So we've got our electronic drums. They are all audio files. What we have is this V drums here. All right, let's just do a save. Okay, so with the V drums here, this is going to depend on how you set it up. If you set it up as a single stereo file, then that is what you are going to get. You are going to render out a single stereo file. Now, in my case here, we have all of these parts here. So what we are going to do is I'm going to try, because I can't remember if this works. So let's see what happens. I want to see if it creates all these individual tracks or not. So I am going to render in place. Let's just check our settings. So we've got channel settings. Okay, I want to see if it separates them all. It may not. It may create one file. Well, that's weird. So it created just the room and the overhead. Okay, so when we're bouncing out a multi-track drums in this case, and there seems to be different ways of doing it and different results. Now, I've tried this a couple of times now and it will not work with the settings I have, where I have particular tracks. Now, I did a bit of a Google search and there's a couple of mentions of it does work, and they just kept saying enable all the outputs. So for some reason, in my situation here, I selectively picked some outputs that I wanted, right? And I had the mixer set. It will not render those out properly for some reason. I don't know why. But if I actually tick on all outputs, it now adds all of the outputs to the window, right? All ones that we don't even want and aren't going to use. Pretty annoying, but we can clean that up, obviously. Now, if we do our render in place, I think we can go back to channel settings here, separate events, and we'll go render. Now it's going to go through and do them. And I think this will successfully create all of the tracks, but it's going to create a lot of tracks we don't want. So we are going to have to clean this up because it's also going to do all of these outputs that don't have any drums playing on them whatsoever. So you can see this is just sort of highlighted all the tracks that it's added quickly. Now it's obviously made them all brown. So these are still all our outputs for the MIDI track, our virtual instrument. And if we scroll down, here's all our audio. So you can see there are a lot of tracks that don't have any audio because there was no drums assigned to those outputs. But you can also see here we have our correct ones, which it's currently drawing up. Okay, so it has muted that. So I'm just going to shrink that for the moment because I want to be sure this is going to work. And we want to get rid of all of these empty ones, right? So we want to delete this one here. All right. Now, this is our room. So I'm just going to solo that and have a listen. Yep, okay, then we have an overhead. Okay, the chorus. Now keep in mind we reset the faders, so remember that we did that. Now I could select multiple tracks, so all these ones that say output, we know that they are not our drum tracks because I had them all nicely labeled. So all of these ones are the ones that got manually added. So we can select them all at once using the Shift key, and then I can remove. So it will delete all of those. Now we'll jump back up. Now we'll just assume these are right for the moment, and we'll just flick through, quickly clean it up. So there's a snare. There's our toms. Now these toms could be cleaned up. Which we could either do here, or we could leave it for the mixing project. You know, totally your choice. We've got some more outputs here, so we'll just scroll down, which is all of those, and remove those. So we should just have all these drum tracks here, and that's obviously our original MIDI. So if we were to solo this, all of these, we should hear something that resembles drums that are not panned and they're not mixed, okay? But we want it to sound something like what our drums were. And I'm happy with that. I'm just going to unsolo all of those. So now I would, again, remove. And we've now removed our Stephen Slate drum VI. So we now have no VIs loaded. Now, for the sake of this, I am going to clean up these drums a little bit, because I don't really want all of this silence. So Tom... Well, it turns out Tom 2 doesn't ever get hit. There's no Tom 2 played anywhere. So we can actually delete Tom 2 because it never gets hit. No point having tracks that don't play. Right, so overheads and all of that we're going to leave as is. Tom 1, I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to do some cuts in various spots here. I'm not going to obsess about getting it real close. You can zoom in and get it right up close if you want. I'm just going to get rid of any of the major parts at the moment. We might clean it up further when we get into mixing. Because these are truly silenced because they did come from a virtual instrument, remember? So it's not like there's actually noise there. Well, there shouldn't be. There could be some bleed, maybe, if your program's doing bleed. I personally prefer not to have bleed on my toms. So, in theory, I would zoom in and look, we should do this properly. Okay, so Tom 1 doesn't even play there. So I'll just go to, I'll do a rough cut first, okay? And this is only for the toms. The rest of the drums I'm happy with. That what it's done is fine. You could add fades to all of these. To the hats. And you could do a fade on the start as well. Yeah, I might not with the kick there. Yeah, we'll just assume that's okay. Being a VI, that it's not going to have an issue. We might just do it. Just do it on the end of these. Okay. All right, let's just zoom in and focus on our toms here for a second. If I can get this in the right spot. All right, we have 3 toms. Okay, let's just... I'm just going to do it a bit better than I had it. Only just because I want the toms to be, and the drums to be a bit tighter. So I'm just going to quickly clean these up. It's not a big deal. Scroll across. That way when we get to mixing, we don't have to worry about this at all. It's all done. It's nice and neat. This is a process that I find that I usually do in mixing when I get clients work, because clients usually won't do this. So I usually do this myself first to clean things up. And that's how I manage to get nice, clean, tight drums, especially if they're real drums that have been recorded. VIs, not such a big deal because, they're not real anyway. Okay, so there we go. So our toms are all now trimmed. Right, I've just basically cut around each hit there. You can cut it whatever way you like. If you want to do it in bigger sections, feel free to do that. It's whatever you prefer, whatever works for you. All right, so we are ready with that one there. And I am actually going to remove our rough from here because it's not actually a rough mix. It was just my very first guitar recording. We don't need it. Alright, so we got that fitting to the window there. That's there. We can do a save. Now what we can also do is come in here into our pool and we can do a cleanup here because the pool... So because I did a few renders and mistakes as I was doing it, trying things out, trying to get the drums out, I'm going to remove unused media, put it in the trash, scroll down, have a look, make sure it all looks good. We'll go down, just check what we're getting rid of. Just seems to be lots of drums, lots of stuff we don't need. I think these new recordings here, that was my rough that I did. That was taken from my iPhone that I dragged in. So we're saying we're going to get rid of that. So now we're going to empty the trash and we're going to erase. Some files were not deleted. Okay, that's fine. They must be in use by something. It must have mistakenly tried to get rid of them. All right, and we save, and our song is now ready for mixing. This is basically the song. Okay, this is what we're going to take into the mixing course. In your case, you're going to take hopefully your song that you have now gotten ready for mixing. You've cleaned it up. It's all good. There's no virtual instruments. It's all audio. And we're going to take that into the mixing course and mix our song. All right, so now that we have done everything, our song's done, we've cleaned it up, we've got it ready for mixing, everything else, we're going to do a final playthrough of where the song is at right now prior to mixing. So this is just recording. Now, I have actually gone back to the original recording, not to the mixing, and the only reason for that is because this one here has some very rough fader mixing and panning mixing, so it's going to be a bit easier to listen to. It's going to be a bit more reasonable, whereas my mixing one, I reset all of the pan controls and all of the faders. So if I wanted to make that actually playable so that you could listen to it, I would have to do a rough mix, and I don't want to do that now. I want to do that obviously in the mixing stage. So I just felt that we could just come back to our original recording here, which was already slightly mixed, and we can have a listen. Now there's obviously two versions here, one which is all lead guitars and one which has a bit of a vocal section there. So I guess I'll bring the vocals in. It's just may clash with our guitars just for this chorus here. But what I want to do first is just remind ourselves of sort of where we started. Now, technically, we started with absolutely nothing. Okay, that's where we technically started. So for me to give you an example of what we started with nothing. But let's be slightly realistic and say, okay, we started with our idea. All right, we started with our very first little idea, which was me playing a bit of guitar, having a melody or something that I recorded onto an iPhone, and I dragged it in here as my rough. So let's have a listen to that first to remind us really how far we've come with this song, right? From the start of this course to where we are right now. So as you can hear, this was me with an idea into an iPhone. Okay, so that's where we came from. And now let's do our playthrough of where we are now. All right, so now that you've seen me do that, I want you to follow the same process and do that with your song. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. Hopefully the video has been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.